How you doing, guys? Welcome back. It's LSP. It's currently the 14th of June, 2022. So the question I want to go through today is, should I buy the dip? We hear this all the time, just buy the dip, and so on. But nobody really goes through or addresses, whether you should buy the dip. Yeah, it's a personal thing. It's not something that is just a blanket, we should all do it. It's personal to you. Should you personally buy the dip? Because saying it as a general statement makes it sound like it's actually a good thing to do, when we know obviously there are some projects or some assets that you simply wouldn't buy the dip in because it'd probably be the worst thing that you could do. So it's not just buy the dip no matter what. There has to be some thought process behind this. So when we look at Bitcoin, and I'm going to use Bitcoin as the example, right? And just for disclosure, I'm personally looking for an opportunity to get into Bitcoin because I know it makes sense at some point. I'm absolutely in no rush. You guys know me by now. I'm probably the most patient trader you will ever come across. I can't do anything until price hits 20,000 or gets back above 48,000. And I am really that disciplined. I won't do anything with Bitcoin until it hits one of those two levels. And even then, it wouldn't just be an immediate buy. It would be a whole new thing starting in the sense of analysis, going through everything that I normally do, looking for confirmation and so on and so forth, right? So I wanted to throw that in there because I want people to understand my thought process and what it is that I'm personally doing and trying to kind of figure out while I'm going through this. I don't want to call it a crash, but this downturn in the market, right? So we look at Bitcoin like this, right? And I'm using the monthly chart deliberately. Right now, we are currently about 70% off its all-time high. That's a pretty significant pullback, right? Now, I believe at some point Bitcoin is going to be at 100K. It's a reasonable number. It makes sense. In years and years to come, it would be a realistic target for Bitcoin to hit in the next, say, 5 years. Yeah. Now you'll notice I'm not saying this year, 6 months, and all this stupid stuff that some of these influencers say. We're being realistic. In the next 5 years, yeah, I genuinely believe that Bitcoin has the ability to go to 100K. So for me, it's like, okay, look, it doesn't really matter if I buy it at 22,678, or whether I buy it at 30K or 28K or 15K or whatever. Ultimately, anything around here kind of makes sense. Yeah, if we just want to do a loose general analysis, anything around this level kind of makes sense because you're so far away from your potential target, right? That anything in this area is going to make you a good return on your investment. Now, here's the problem. You have to really believe whatever it is that you're investing in is going to work. If you don't believe Bitcoin is going to go, to 100K, for example, or even all-time high, then you simply wouldn't engage with it. You'd probably look for something else, right? I believe it's going to go there, so I'm taking that risk. I would be happy to take that risk because I believe that my analysis is good. I believe what I'm seeing on Bitcoin makes sense. I believe it's going to be around for a while, all the good stuff, right? So we've had a pretty decent downturn, right? It's been going for some time now. We had 3 strong months down. We have a 2-month rally. We have another 3 strong moves that, months down, but we're coming into an area now where we could potentially find that bottom, right? It could be here. It could be at 16. It could be at 15, 14. There's a lot of places that this, or that Bitcoin could be turning from. Our goal is not to try to pick this bottom. Yeah. We're not here trying to precisionally take every ounce, of what Bitcoin has to offer, right? We're trying to safely engage in the market, right? We know this level down here, 20K, is significant. Price has been driving towards that level for some time. My analysis tells me that there is liquidity there and that price needs to go there to pick up that liquidity. There is always the possibility, of course, that price doesn't do anything that I say it's going to do, because it's not me, obviously. It's a representation of what we're seeing in the marketplace, and we just use candlesticks to represent that. This, as I've said many, many times in terms of price, is irrelevant, right? If I took the price off and I just showed you the chart, nothing would change. And in fact, it would probably make the analysis much, much better for you to see what's actually happening on the chart. So 20K, what do we do with this information, right? So for me, first things first, can't do anything until it hits 20K. Now, when it hits 20K, or if it hits 20K, you start to assess. You drop down to a lower time frame. You see how price was driving towards that level. You can see that price started to accelerate, really started to really push on that last sort of candle, and then it slowed down a little bit here. Now, here's the problem. Every time it does this, there's no relief. There's no rally. There's nothing. If we ripped to the upside, got back above 32,000, that is an immediate solid response. This is simply not what we're getting on Bitcoin. We're just seeing these downturns. We're seeing this small, consolidation that starts to build, maybe a little bit of a move higher, whatever, but ultimately it just stays there for a while, just as it did here. And then you start that next leg down to go into what is being, the draw on price, that pull on price, which is around about 20K, sub 20K, right? So if we just quickly go over to the Forex Factory calendar, right? This is important. On Wednesday, i.e. tomorrow, 7 o'clock GMT time, we're going to have the federal funds rate, right? The interest rate. Now, obviously, they believe that there's going to be, an interest rate hike, probably another sort of 50 basis points. So we'll probably end up around about 2%, right? That's a possibility. In fact, it's a very, very high possibility that that's going to happen. Market's already pricing this in. Generally, what you'll tend to find is when something is almost certain, the market will price that in first. When it's tentative or not, they're not sure. Is it going to happen? Is it not? Kind of maybe, sometimes maybe with CPI numbers or, other numbers, non-farm payroll, stuff like this, they're not always sure what that's going to be. So you kind of get a pretty crappy, market day. And then when the numbers are released, everything goes crazy, right? But for me, I feel that price is genuinely pricing in this interest rate hike, right? So with that said, it is possible that we find some relief tomorrow. I think we'll get that last portion into sort of 20K, potentially a little bit lower, possibly as low as 14K. I know that seems extreme and aggressive, but we may very well get down there, right? And then we get some relief from that as the market starts to recover. There are people who are heavily accumulating Bitcoin right now. And I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. It's a great opportunity. Again, not financial advice, but in terms of looking at the ratios, looking from where Bitcoin was, the 70% drawdown, so it's not drawdown, the 70%, kind of retracement from that all-time high and so on. If you're just going to look at it from an asset point of view or any asset point of view, and where it is, the percentages, and the downturn that we are in the market, it's actually not a bad spot to be accumulating Bitcoin, for example, right? It makes sense. But how you do that depends on whether or not you're disciplined. It depends on how much money you have. It depends on what your goals are. It depends on what you're trying to, do with Bitcoin and so on. If you're planning on holding Bitcoin for the next 5-10 years, it really doesn't matter where you buy it. And I genuinely mean that. It makes no difference, period. For me, if I believe strongly that Bitcoin is going to get to 100K, then I can buy all the way up to 80,000, knowing that I'm going to get that last portion, right? And then I can reassess it at 100K. Many of you who've been following me for a very, very long time will know that that was the initial target. And I was saying, and I've always maintained, I would always stop buying at 80K. Yeah, always. I would never buy anything past that 80K point because you've only got 20K left, to get to that 100,000, right? And obviously the math at that point, to be fair, the model that I was using at the time, because I'm out of Bitcoin now, but the model that I was using at the time was what at least would have put my average cost at around about 58. Yeah. So at the time when I was accumulating Bitcoin and waiting for that push to 100K, before I sold, near the highs, it would have put me around about 58,000 on an average cost. So, you have to plan. You have to plan the entire thing. Okay, it's not enough to just I'm just going to grab it down here. Plan it. For me, 20K. Then I will drop down to the lower time frames and I'll start to assess what's going on. Yeah, is it responding? Have I seen that final capitulation? Have I seen any indication that the market wants to turn? Yes, maybe I'll see a little bit of a rally, whatever. But is it strong enough? Has the momentum shift? Has it? Has the accumulation phase for Bitcoin started to hit the retail markets and not just these big players? There's a lot to factor in. And then obviously we want to see general markets turning as well. If we go over to the indices, we can see that we're having a little bit of an update so far. Yes, it's very early. It's like 10 to 10 in the morning here, but we're having a little bit of a sort of positive start to US equities. We'll see what that looks like closer to the open pre-market. But at the moment, it seems like the markets are starting to kind of settle a little, maybe chilling before that last portion or drive down before, the federal funds rate is released. But with all of that said, the main focus, like I said today, was to plan, 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 plan. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure it's solid. Make sure it makes sense for you personally. It's very easy to just buy the dip. Anybody can buy the dip, right? But buying the dip correctly for you personally depends on what you want to do, depends on whether you believe in the asset that you're trading, depends on what your resources are. And to be fair, just to give you two basic examples before I shoot off, if you have very little money, for example, then timing for you is way more important than somebody who has more money. Yeah, like just have a little bit of have a think about that. So with all of that said, quick update today. I am going to be doing a more in-depth update probably within the next 3 hours or so. But I wanted to kind of address this because it's been coming up quite a lot, and it was also in my Discord as well. Don't forget to smash that like button, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around, and I will catch up with you in the deeper update in about 3 hours. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Ciao for now.